Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Roland Roberts, and we are going live with Kingdompreneur Radio in 5 minutes. So I wanted to give everyone a chance to get on. I want to be able to greet everybody and say hello. And I also want to introduce you to a special in-studio guest that I have today. And so I want you to be able to meet him. And before we get going, so he's the co-author of Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Jeff Pearsall and Eric Wright. And Eric is actually with us in the studio today. Eric, say hello.
Hello. It's great to be here. Look forward to beginning the conversation.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about several things today. And, you know, as you all know, hi, Kimberly. The main thing that one of the topics that I'm going to cover is very sensitive. It's breaking the soul ties in business. We talk about soul ties and we know what soul ties are, but how does it relate to business? We have not understood that when we're struggling in business, the problem is usually personal, not business. I mean, if you're competent at all, the problem likely is a soul tie somewhere that's holding you back. And so we're going to talk about Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. We're going to be talking about all kinds of people. Hi, Lindsay. Big prayers for next week. She's competing in the Miss United States pageant. And here in Orlando, Florida, I'm actually going to talk about it a little bit during the show. And so she's been killing it and working hard. And
that's great.
We're cheering you on for sure. But today is about breaking the soul ties. And it's going to be a difficult topic, and you may have some soul ties. You may have some soul ties that you need to break. And so don't be afraid to call in. Don't be afraid to write your questions to us. You can call 407-682-9595, and we'll be going live, of course. Also, once we go live, as you know, we have to switch our audio so that you're able to hear callers. And you're also able to hear what we hear on, or listeners hear on the radio. So feel free to ask your questions online or by calling. I prefer you to call so we can interact and I can ask some follow-up questions and we can really just talk about some things. But this is going to get to the heart of the matter really quick today. So it's going to be a great show. I'm really excited about it. There's been plenty of warfare, but I'm telling you, I saw a massive miracle. Is probably one of the biggest miracles I've seen in a long time. And I've seen God move mountains. I mean, absolute mountains over the past 12 months of my life. And what happened yesterday afternoon, and I'll share at a high level as much as I can about it, but it literally was the biggest miracle I've seen God perform in my life and the life of a company, probably since I was CEO of the nutraceutical biotech company. So unbelievable. So we're getting ready to go live. We'll talk to you in a second. See you on the other side.
Oh, Kobe.
Oh, Drew, you told me these dudes can play. This dude, he's a karate man.
Hey,
he's meditating right now. This guy right here can't even see.
Swish.
How's that geriatric team of yours? You get them all individual life alert bracelets?
You still don't believe, dude.
Despite this being a poorly written film with characters who flip-flop personality-wise, Dax is a really nice guy. Plus, there's an upbeat message about forgiving others and following one's dream. But all of this gets marred by some sleazy dialogue, a bare backside gag, foul language, and a baptism played for laughs. Certainly no slam dunk. So I'm giving Uncle Drew 2.5 nothing but nets out of 5 for family friendliness. For more, go to pluggedin.com/radio. Plugging you into the movies, I'm Bob Olszewski for Focus on the Family's Plugged In Movie Review.
All right, stand by. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. We got your intro. Relax.
AM 950. Florida's WTLN Orlando.
The Word, where faith comes by hearing.
Kingdompreneur Radio is paid for by Courageous.
You've waited 10,080 minutes, 168 hours, and 7 days for this moment. Welcome to Kingdompreneur Radio, the only business call-in show on Christian radio. Join CEO and host Dr. Roland Roberts as he takes your calls live and solves the biggest challenges you have in business. Entrepreneurs, this is for you. Bringing to you now the founder and CEO of Courageous and former CEO of the Hoverboard Company. Here's Dr. Roland Roberts.
Hello, Kingdompreneurs, and welcome to Kingdompreneur Radio. You may be hurting today. Your finances may be tight. Your relationships may be deteriorating. Your business may be struggling. But over the next hour, I am taking your calls to grow your kingdom business, turn around your company, resurrect dead relationships, instantly improve your productivity, and dramatically restore your happiness, joy, and peace. I'm Dr. Roland Roberts, and this is Kingdompreneur Radio, helping you live your faith in business. You will be a better person 60 minutes from now than you are at this moment. I'll be right back to take your calls.
Kingdompreneur Radio is brought to you by Cardiff Lexington Corporation, a publicly traded company under symbol CDIX. If you're a business owner interested in selling to pull equity out of your business and would like to stay on board or are looking for growth capital, visit www.cardifflexington.com.
Welcome back to Kingdompreneur Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Roland Roberts, and I'm taking your calls today about starting a business, growing a business, or just hearing your thoughts on today's topic, which is amazing. You're going to like it. It's how to break the soul ties that are killing your business. And most people don't put those two together. Soul ties, they just think are, hurt them personally. But we're talking about today about how the soul ties are killing your business. And then the most difficult and compelling question, how do you break them? And that is a brutal, painful process, and we're going to be talking about it. So I want you to call in, join the conversation at 407-682-9595. Once again, 407-682-9595. You can also watch us online today at verycourageous.com. Very, V-E-R-Y, courageous.com. You can watch behind the scenes. You actually get to hear behind the scenes. You get to see us during the commercial breaks. And you get to interact. You can ask us questions online as well, as opposed to calling. So we just want you to be a part of the conversation, and we're going to spend the next hour together. And I'm telling you, you won't be the same person that you are at this moment if you invest this time. So we're really excited. I'm thrilled, actually, to have in the studio with me today a special guest. He is the co-author of the book Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars. And he's the co-author with Jeff Pearsall. And this book, I read it a couple of weeks ago, and it's a great book, and we're going to talk about it here in just a few minutes. But Eric, I'm thrilled to have you in the studio today. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Well, first of all, before we talk about the book, I want us to know about you.
Okay.
So give us a little context and a little background.
Sure. It's interesting, Roland, just getting to know you. And my question was, you sort of started in business and have gravitated towards ministry, or really business and ministry.
Right, yeah.
And frankly, I started in ministry and gravitated towards business. I took sort of the opposite track. Became a Christian back in the early 70s, dramatic night to day experience for me. I'll never forget, one of my best friends came to my house and said, Eric, what are you looking for in life? And I said, I'm looking for the truth. And I really believed that. I didn't know what the truth was.
That's rare.
So, yeah. Well, and then it was amazing. I'll never forget it. He opened his Bible and started reading the dialogue between Jesus and Pontius Pilate, where they came to that critical decision-making point. And, Jesus said, everyone who's of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate responded, what is truth?
Yeah.
And that's where I was. And to be honest with you, at the time, I thought I was kind of Jesus-like. Right. I had the long hair going. I was for peace and all this kind of stuff. But at that moment, I realized, I wasn't like Jesus. I was like Pontius Pilate.
Wow.
And I was really standing in judge over him. And and was gripped by that moment by the Holy Spirit to just say, okay, which way are you going? Are you going to humble yourself? Are you going to find some sort of intellectual escape hatch like Pontius Pilate did?
It's totally your Damascus Road experience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, transformational. Went into ministry. About 7 years later, planted a church really just west of here in Winter Garden and a school. Was there for about 8 years. And then I went down to Palm Bay, Florida, took over a church that was in complete disarray, meeting in a shopping center, and pastored there for 15 years, had great success. The church flourished and grew, but then, some things began to happen in me, and I began to ask some questions. And the first thing that really happened is I was reading what they call the creation mandate, that charge to Adam in the beginning, and that was to cultivate the garden and to keep the garden, which really means be creative, build, expand, and then protect. And I realized that, hey, that was not something that ended because of the fall. That's still God's purpose. That's still God's plan for us to build and create and to protect what we have. And that started the wheels rolling in my mind, because then I had another sort of catharsis.
Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
A lot of people think that their purpose is to be happy and to be entertained.
Yeah.
And we live in an entertainment mecca with Disney and Universal and SeaWorld and dinner theater shows and all kinds of things. And what you just said is what I think so many believers and entrepreneurs and business people, period, miss.
Yeah.
They're living for the recreation. They spend more time planning their vacation. They spend more time planning what they're going to do Thursday night or where they're going to go out and what they're going to do than they do their life. It is not seeking truth.
Yeah.
It is seeking pleasure.
Right. It's really, they're seeking the outcomes oftentimes of an entrepreneurial pursuit rather than really zeroing in on, why am I here? What am I doing? What is its larger purpose? How does this fit into the scope of God's economy?
Well, you're not going to feel very good when you get those answers. And and those very same people rule their life by their feelings and their emotions. So if it doesn't feel good, I'm going to avoid that. And so that the problem is when you refuse to acknowledge the truth and you instead choose to give credence and credibility and live your life according to your feelings and let your emotions rule you, as opposed to...
Oh, absolutely. But as you know, Roland, that plays out very quickly. Even if you realize that and you realize that goal and you're living the life, very quickly that life has no substance. It has no meaning to it, and you begin groping and you begin looking for something else. Where it hit me really as a pastor was I began to look out on the men in my congregation and not excluding the women or the women, there's as many women entrepreneurs and business leaders in America as there are men. But I began looking at the men and realizing these guys spend most of their week pursuing something, but they don't really have a connection with that as a calling.
Right.
They don't have a connection to this original idea that God planted in man at the beginning. Has it been corrupted? Yes, everything's been corrupted.
Yeah.
I mean, our sexuality has been corrupted, but that doesn't mean sexuality is bad.
Right.
And the same thing with work. It was almost like work was something that you only did in order to support these other things that were really valuable, which is your family, your home. And believe me, I'm all about that.
Right.
But there's value and there's calling in the pursuit of your vision, in the pursuit of what God has planted in you to do with most of your time. And for most guys, I found that there was just a complete disconnect. And what is more, at least in the church I was pastoring, I found that we really sort of celebrated the home, but we didn't celebrate the work, if you understand what I mean.
Keep going. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We would, here's where it hit me, honestly.
They thought work was a means to an end.
Yes. You worked in order to support the activity that really took place in the home, but the activity took place in the home. Yeah. How many times have you heard, well, when you're laying on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking, about,
wish I spend more time at the office.
Exactly. How many times have we heard that? And so here's where it hit me. We did Mother's Day, and we always, did a big deal at Mother's Day and everything. And it was all about affirmation. We wanted every single mother who came in to feel affirmed in that calling. Then when Father's Day rolled around, I looked at what our message was to the majority, and it was all about responsibility. We were affirming mom, but we were talking to dad about responsibility all the time. Wow. And so one year I just said, we're not going to do that. This time we're going to do something. We're going to celebrate men, and so all the guys that had motorcycles brought their motorcycles and lined up the stage. I had a guy from NASCAR that bring in a NASCAR, race car and everything. And we just talked about this principle that God gave to man there in the garden, to be fruitful, but to do it by being creative.
Yes.
To build and by protecting.
You know what, Eric? Look. Our greatest example of an entrepreneur and an innovator is obviously Jesus Christ. And think about what he did. I mean, look at what he created. Yeah. He created a universe and galaxy after galaxy after galaxy that we can't even fathom. That if we had another 100 million years on this earth, we wouldn't scratch the surface of how things work, just how finite and minute, he has been, that an infinite mind, created. So, to think if we're supposed to be like him, it's no surprise then that we would want to innovate. That should be a natural expression of our faith.
We would want to build. We would want to create. And whether you think of yourself as a creative person or not, it doesn't matter. Look at the things you like to do for hobbies sometimes. We'll work all week and then, come the weekend, we've got some project. We want to build something, we want to change something. It's in all of us. It's part of, to me, the divine image that rests in us that we have to recognize, excuse me, and we have to celebrate.
So quickly, how did you end up getting from that, in ministry into business, and especially, to the degree that you are now?
Sure. Well, it's never a straight line, as you know.
Right.
So here's what happened. I was preaching this sermon series on statements of Jesus.
Okay.
And one of the surprising statements that Jesus made to me was, like when blind Bartimaeus came to Jesus, they were coming into Jericho. Blind Bartimaeus heard about it. He called out, "Son of David, have mercy on me." He was making such a ruckus that couldn't get him to shut up. And Jesus finally said, "Bring him here to me." They brought him to Jesus, and Jesus said to him, "What would you like me to do for you?" Now think about that. Here's this blind guy, and he was like, "Well, Lord, I'm blind."
You could start with my eyesight,
let's begin there. and so I began to talk to my congregation and say, how often in preaching the gospel do we ask people what they want? We're usually telling them what we think they need. This is what you need. You need to do this. You need to do this. How often do you pause and just say, what is it that you want?
Yeah.
What can I do for you? So I was living in this community, and almost 100,000, and it had no city center. Okay, there was no gathering place. We had parking lots that we went to shop, parking lots that we went to go to the restaurants, parking lots that we went to go to church, but there was no place to gather as a community. And so we had acquired about 40 acres of property. Our master plan used about 20 of those. And so I went to my congregation and I said, look, what our community is asking for is a city center. Why don't we build it? Why don't we do that? And if you look at the city centers in historic cities, I mean, you go anywhere, whether it's Seville, whether it's Barcelona, they have this city center, and in the city center is a church. And I said, what's missing in the modern city center is there's no spiritual presence. I said, if we build the city center, we're going to be front and center. We're going to make a declaration that faith and Christianity is a part of the whole of life. It's not this segmented section of life that you do on Sunday or privately. So I began this path. Well, people in the congregation, they were like, oh, I'm not sure about this. And to the point to where it was causing tension. So I said, hey, look, would you mind if I just went and did it? I'll get a team together. I know architects. I know managers. I know people who have done this sort of city planning. Can I go do it? I'll form a separate corporation. So I went out and did that. And everybody's going, yay, Eric, yay, Eric. Yeah. Until it started moving along, and then people really got sideways on it.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, it's the barking dogs, Here we were doing something that could have transformed that community, and it came to the point where I realized, this is not going to happen. This is one of those things where you've got to, be willing to step away.
Yeah. Yeah, you're riding two horses, and all of a sudden they start to go this way. You better choose one.
That's right.
Or you're going to be hurting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And at that time, Jeff Pearsall, who's the co-author, he was the president and CEO, pretty good size nutraceutical company. He had asked me to come in to help him articulate the values for his company and do some speaking, at his events. And he had walked away from that company, and he had launched a magazine called Space Coast Business Magazine, the first of 4 that we eventually launched. And he said, Eric, you've got this platform in your church. You've got a platform in radio and everything. But he said, I think we can build a much bigger platform. He said, I think we can build a platform to reach the people who you're trying to speak to. Mm. And so, we jumped in together and went from Space Coast Business to then we launched I-4 Business, which covered the whole Central Florida area. And then we launched another periodical called Florida Trep Magazine, Entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And in order to, get the message out that, look, there are other people that are out there. There are other people pursuing these goals that you're pursuing. We understand the challenges. We understand the rewards. And we want to tell those stories because to me, there's nothing more powerful than a story. I mean,
facts tell, stories sell. Yes. And you can talk to people all day long, or you can just visit with them through storytelling. So, all right. So tell us then how this book came about, and specifically, what is it? What is a reader going to get from it?
Okay. In the course of the 12 years that we have been publishing, we interviewed CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. We interviewed startups and everything in between, in every possible industry that you can imagine. The Central Florida is very diverse.
Yes.
Technology, tourism, that just scratches all of it. We began to see certain common denominators. As you know, a big part of intelligence is recognizing patterns. Mm-hmm. And so we began to say, okay, what are the common denominators that these successful entrepreneurs share? All of them, regardless of their industry. And we began to chronicle those. And it was almost like we would interview somebody and we go check. And we knew if we saw them all that this is somebody that has a message we just have to tell. Mm-hmm. So we just have to be a platform where their life can broadcast what they have done. And so we began to look at those things, and then we began to categorize them and say what did these mean? Not only to the successful CEO, what does it mean to the startup? What does it mean to the stay-at-home mom that's homeschooling her kids? What does it mean to all of the people who are trying to make a difference? Because if you're trying to make a difference, rest assured, you're going to deal with barking dogs.
Yes.
You try to move the needle. You try to say, hey, I want to do X. You're going to have a certain amount of balcony people who are saying, yeah, that's great.
You're going to walk on water, and then they say it's because you can't swim,
That's right.
But the loudest boos always come from the cheapest seats.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. And unfortunately, sometimes those boos come from the people that we're closest to because they think they know us. And also sometimes I think they want to protect us from failure. Mm-hmm. It's like, we don't want you to experience that. So we want to buffer your life so that, you don't feel this pain. Well,
right.
There's no pain, no gain. I mean, that's part of it. You risk and you get the great reward, or sometimes you suffer the great defeat, but you learn and you start again. Well, some people want to protect you from that. And so that's what we ran.
So this is how to deal with the barking dogs in your life. In your business?
It is, but even more than that, it's, hey, you have got to have a center in your life that gives you a source of guidance and direction no matter what comes. Look, we're moving at a pace of change that's unprecedented in history. As you know, you're smiling now. I know you see this. Yep. So how do you navigate? How do you manage that change? The only way you can manage change that's moving, at hyper velocity is you've got to have a core set of principles and values that don't change. That becomes the basis of your decision making.
Paul said, none of these things move me. And he had just talked about all the shipwrecks that he had. He talked about all the beatings he had. He talked about all the jail time he had. Mm-hmm. And he said, none of these things move me. And if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you better figure out how none of these things the payroll, the bank, the money not being there, the employee problems, the personnel problems, the contract problems. You better figure out how none of these things move you. When I come back, I'm going to be all out on helping you blast through the soul ties that are absolutely killing your business. The phone lines are still open. Call 407-682-9595. I'll be right back.
Some attribute the saying to the Greek philosopher Aristotle. If you want to avoid criticism, all you have to do is say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. On the other hand, if you decide your life is purposed for something worthy and being on the playing field is preferred to sitting in the stands, there is something you are sure to encounter. Barking dogs. The dynamic new book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, available now at Amazon.com, illustrates this encounter with the voices that find fault, who don't think it is possible, and who are unable to see a future alive with opportunities waiting to be seized. Unfortunately, these barking dogs are often right in our own heads. Simply put, go to Amazon.com and type in Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars and receive the wisdom gleaned from the author's own experience and hundreds of successful CEOs they interviewed over a decade, enabling you to bridge the chasm that is normally crossed only through trial and error. Get unstuck. Eliminate the frustration in building your business. The authors inspire and instruct those pursuing this journey with a central purpose: to exalt freedom through ethical capitalism. Entrepreneurs, business people, and Christian leaders, mark your calendars now for the 3-day, 2-night, all-inclusive, faith-based Bahamas CEO Cruise, departing West Palm Beach October 7th through the 9th for only $49 per person plus port taxes and fees. For $49, you can join former Hoverboard CEO and Kingdompreneur radio host Dr. Roland Roberts on this incredible experience, providing access to world-renowned business titans. It's access, relationships, business, worship, and breakthroughs in your swimsuit. Reserve your cabin now at www.ceocruise.com. Kingdompreneur Radio is brought to you by Cardiff Lexington Corporation, a publicly traded company under symbol CDIX. If you're a business owner interested in selling to pull equity out of your business and would like to stay on board or are looking for growth capital, visit www.cardifflexington.com.
Welcome back to Kingdompreneur Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Roland Roberts, and I am spending the next 40 minutes helping you break the soul ties that are killing your business. This is a difficult topic, and I want you to just kind of settle in for the next few minutes. I really just want you to soak this in, because this is going to go deep fast. And, I'm basically going to perform heart surgery and not give you any anesthesia here. All right. We got to jump right into it. So here's the deal. There's a story in the Bible about Abraham and Sarah, who they were husband and wife, and God promised them a child. Now, Sarah was really, really old already. And so she's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And they did not believe, and they paid a price for that. But they kept waiting, and so then finally Sarah says to Abraham, and obviously I'm paraphrasing all of this, but she says to Abraham, her husband, and I don't know very many wives who would say something like this, but I do know that there's still a lot of surrogates. People believe in surrogates and things, but normally it'd be more implanted as opposed to what Sarah did. But Sarah said, okay, Abraham, I can't conceive. There's no way I'm having a baby. Like, God messed this one up. I didn't hear him clearly. We had a little wax in the ears or something. What I want you to do is, I've got Hagar, my servant over here, and I want you to go have sexual relations with her, and I want you to have a baby with her. Have our baby with her. She's a surrogate. And I'm sure Abraham's going like, did I just hear you right? Like, is that for real? So you're telling me to go be with this other woman. And so she did, or he did. And he went to her. And here's the deal. If you really think through this, it probably wasn't just one time, right? I mean, it was probably, we don't know how many times Abraham was with Hagar. We don't know. But at some point she conceived. And you can just kind of imagine how this triangle is working here. Can you imagine Abraham and Sarah married, but Abraham, Hagar's walking around the house and be like, Abraham, I just felt him kick. Come here, feel my belly. Look, he's growing. Oh, do you see it? And can you imagine the bitterness and the resentment that was building up in Sarah during that time. Like, I mean, all she wanted was a baby. That was their desire. That was that was God's promise to them. And then now it's like her handmaiden is the one getting all the attention and getting all the pleasure from being pregnant and going through that process and bringing life into this world. And then obviously it's tying her and Abraham together really tight.
Right before her eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't ignore it. And so he's trying to be a good father, and, and he was the one whenever, she's delivering, that he's the one holding her hand and there when his son is being born. So if you really think through all of that, he had a massive, massive soul tie with Hagar. And it was emotional. It was physical. It was every possible soul tie that you can have. And, it was one of the greatest mistakes of Abraham's life. It's something that we still live with today, because God did fulfill his promise to Abraham and Sarah. She did have a baby, and Isaac, and then of course Hagar's was Ishmael, and those two started growing up together. And at some point there was so much conflict between the two of them. And by the way, that conflict still continues today.
I was going to
with
say,
obviously Israel, Pakistan, Israel being Isaac descendants, and Palestinians and so forth being Ishmael descendants. And so that's why we pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But that conflict goes back to Abraham's mistake trying to make up for God's promise. So he had a miracle, God's miracle, and then we have Abraham's mistake. And so the soul tie, I mean, I imagine the day that, the conflict became so great, and Sarah goes to Abraham and say, look, Blair, I'll be with you in just a second. Thanks for calling in. Blair Sarah goes to Abraham and say, hey, she's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I don't know if any of you have ever had your wife or girlfriend or relationship come in and say, I don't know who this woman is. She's got to go. Yeah. I want her out of your phone. I want her off your social media. I want her gone, So then, yeah.
Roland, it's interesting. I think we got to really back up and say they were trying to achieve a good end. Mm-hmm. They had this promise, and they lost sight of, how that promise was going to be fulfilled. And so really they were trying to achieve this end that they both agreed on, but yet they got distracted. And I don't think a relationship like this happens where someone is not trying to achieve some good end that they think,
right.
But they don't realize that it's going to go sideways real fast. The other thing, as you know, there was a faith breakdown. And every time there's a soul tie, there's a faith breakdown. That God cannot supply what I need.
Yes.
God cannot deliver on his promise. I've got to go out and I've got to do it myself. I've got to insert myself into the equation. I've got to sort of usurp sovereignty and proceed forward, and then boom, we're in the situation. And like you said,
it's short term.
Yeah.
It's at some point you come to that crossroads, and that was the crossroads where it was this: they've got to go. Mm-hmm. The woman and the child have to go.
Right.
And you've got to decide in that moment what you're going to do, because Abraham has this whole time, like, I love this woman. I brought a child into this world with her.
Yeah, not only do I love this woman, I love the child.
Yes.
He's got this little boy that his heart is wrapped around.
And if you're a father of a boy, of a man that you're trying to raise, you know what kind of what this is saying. So we're gonna get right back to this in a moment. I've got a couple of callers on the line. Blair, thank you for calling Kingdompreneur Radio.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Doing well.
Good.
Doing well. How are you guys?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I may be taking you a little bit off topic, but I've been interested in pursuing the idea of investing in a franchise business for years, but I don't have any business experience.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if the Lord's leading me in that direction or not, and I feel like he's kind of saying, use your sound mind and reach out to some wise people that can help guide you, in this decision. And so that's why I'm reaching out. Just thought you might be able to give some wisdom and some direction as to even how to make this decision. Is the investment worth doing and trusting him in that direction, or is it a kind of like the program last week? Is this is it a bold step or is it stupid?
Am I being bold or dumb here? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I can tell you right now, every time you step out of the boat, when you're winning, it looks like you're bold. When you're losing, it looks like you were stupid. So what you have to do is be comfortable with both.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable knowing that you're going to, sometimes you're going to, the best thing that I remember is, don't doubt in the valley of what you knew, on the mountaintop. And so I think that in this case, when you know that you're making a decision in accordance, with his plan and his purpose, as Eric was alluding to earlier, in your calling, that's where you're going to be staying on track. I think the key is in obedience. I do love the idea, though, of franchising for first-time entrepreneurs. I do like that idea.
Yes,
because I think so many of they talk about 9 out of 10 businesses fail, and of course I say that's why I started 10. But really, I see so many first-time entrepreneurs, and even second, third, fourth, that they still don't get it. They still don't understand what they have to do to get to where they want to be. So, I like franchising because of the systems. Now you got to be careful. You got to vet them. You got, there's a number of things you still got to do. And all franchises are not created equal. So you got to look at your skill set, your calling, your gifting, and then decide, now which, what industry is attractive to me, based on where I live, based on where I'm supposed to be, based on my family. There are franchises that you've got to be in 60, 70 hours a week, and you're still going to make 50 grand best case. Okay. A year. And then there's others that, maybe have a varying investment, but your family could be a part of it. Or, maybe it's a little bit more of a fun type of a franchise than work franchise. There's a number of different things here. Eric, I'd love for you to chime in.
Well, one thing that you said that I think you need to reflect on, you say, I don't have a business background. Well, business is about life. And I don't know how old you are, but you've got some life lessons. You've got some leadership lessons, some experiential lessons that are going to translate into that business experience. Most of the people that I meet coming right out of an MBA in business school don't know that much about how to run a business, So I don't think you should sell yourself short. I don't think that should be, a contributing factor. I think the contributing factor is, do I have the knowledge? Do I have the passion? And do I have the ability in order to drive this, as Roland is saying? But we all start somewhere. We all start sometime.
Well, and the question, I think a couple of things. Number one, you surround yourself with great people. Anytime I go into something that I do not know, I try to get the best people around me. I remember when I was running for the Senate, I had never run for politics or any kind of a seat before. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to run a business. I had just got done being CEO of a company. And we had a great turnaround, and I knew how to generate revenue and grow businesses around the world or brands, but I'd never run for public office. And so I knew that I didn't know. And so I hired people, and I treated them like they were the CEOs. There was no ego. I just wanted to run the best race that I could. And I knew what I didn't know.
That is so crucial. You knew what you didn't know. And because of that, you went seeking those who had expertise in those areas. And those people are out there for you.
Yeah. Do you want to win, or do you want to be right? Because you're not going to be able to be both, it really comes, but in what we're talking about is a lot of business success comes back to you being able to manage your personal emotions, your personal life, and your walk with the Lord. It's going to thrust you to heights that you've never known, at depths actually, that you've never known in your relationship with Christ. Because so many of these principles that you've learned over the course of time are going to be so vivid, and they're not the easiest to always live by. And the battles of life will be won or lost in your mind. And the problem is it doesn't stop. It's, and I say that I would rather, work 80 hours for myself than 40 hours for somebody else. I mean, that's true. But if you have a family, that can be taxing, because your brain oftentimes isn't always off when it should be. And Eric and I, before the show, were talking about the necessity of kingdompreneurs getting away. And there's a big difference between isolation and solitude. Mm-hmm. I'm not recommending isolation at all, withdrawing, and, I'm recommending solitude. Jesus got alone multiple times, and the difference was when you get alone, you're spending time with him. Mm-hmm. You're not withdrawing. There's a big, big difference between isolation and solitude, and I think people mess that up all the time. So my recommendation, and we're going to take another call here, is to I strongly believe in franchising. I think you need to vet it. I think you need to have advisors that will vet it. You need to look at I would make a list of all of the franchises that you are remotely interested in, that are available, that are within your price range. Look at the FDDs. They all are required by law to have those. Mm-hmm. You're able to see what the average earnings are, the high and the low, and so forth. These are not made up things. These are actual, legal information that they're having to file with the federal government on their disclosures. So definitely, that's a great place to start. And, but I would say this, unless you're buying a McDonald's franchise, you're not going to kill it. Don't expect to become a millionaire off of the one little franchise you buy. You may end up buying, if you bought a Subway for $250,000, $300,000, you'll make a good living off of that, but you're not going to get rich or off of that. What you'd have to do is start buying more Subways and more restaurants. I was talking to a business owner the other day who, they're doing $55 million in revenue, and, they've got, I think it's 27 Subways, like 8 Yogurtlands, and a number of Five Guys or, whatever. So they actually became up like their own little restaurant group. And so very unique business and business model. So there's ways to do it and to grow it, but just recognize, through franchising, but the skill set is different than an entrepreneur or an inventor entrepreneur or a solopreneur or someone who's writing software and, selling it that way. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for calling Kingdompreneur Radio, Blair. Lord bless you. Darla, welcome to Kingdompreneur Radio. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind today?
My question is, when you're trying to pursue your advance, right, is the people in your life, why do they seem to attack you? It's very confusing that they don't want you to succeed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That, I think we were talking about that too. I can tell you right now, First Chronicles 21:1 says that Satan attacked David in Israel. And in Job 1, I think it's verse 7 through 9, it talks about that, obviously Satan attacked him. Anyone that is growing, and especially all great people, and the Bible says everyone that lives for the Lord will suffer persecution. So that just covers everyone. But as you grow, you will be attacked. You will be. It makes the people closest to you, friends and family, very uncomfortable when you start to grow. It makes them oftentimes feel bad about what they're not doing. It makes them regret. It brings up emotions, unresolved, usually anger, unresolved bitterness, unresolved resentment, maybe with their mom or their family or their past.
Or hopes that have been deferred in their lives.
That's it. Where dreams dashed.
Yeah, they tried something and it didn't work, and therefore they're still stewing on that. Or because they care about you, they want to protect you from similar injuries. And so they think the best thing they can do is sort of stop you before you dream too big. It's a common malady, but you've got to deal with, what am I going to listen to? Who's my source of advice? And who is just my source of relationship? Cut yourself off from those voices, but you can't make them the deciding. Here's the basic principle. You go to Africa, you go on safari. If you come in contact with a lion, the first thing they're going to tell you is don't run. You run, you're dead. Why? Because lions go after moving objects. And unfortunately, that's the way, people's predatory instincts work. If you're moving, you're catching their attention, and that's when they're going to go after you, Say nothing, do nothing, you won't have any problem.
Yeah. One of the things that you're talking about right there is they're going to come against you. They're going to say things. The goal is not to get people not to say things, because they're always going to say things. The goal is to get is for you to keep moving in spite of it. That's the goal. The goal is that it doesn't slow you down. The goal is that it doesn't distract you. The goal, and this is the big one, is that it doesn't discourage you.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you're going to be able to get through that is with other people, the right kind of people. I would pray that God brings the right kind of people in your life, because you're going to need 5 or 10 voices to counteract the one negative that's coming at you constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Look
and the
at
negative does seem to stick.
Yeah. Well, look at an entrepreneur's reading list. Why does an entrepreneur read those kind of books? It's because she's surrounding herself with individuals who will affirm and push her forward.
Yeah, very good. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be right back after Darla, thanks so much for calling Kingdompreneur Radio. I'm going to be right back after this short commercial break, and we're going to finish up with how to break some soul ties in your life and business.
Entrepreneurs, business people, and Christian leaders, mark your calendars now for the 3-day, 2-night, all-inclusive, faith-based Bahamas CEO Cruise, departing West Palm Beach October 7th through the 9th for only $49 per person plus port taxes and fees. For $49, you can join former Hoverboard CEO and Kingdompreneur radio host Dr. Roland Roberts on this incredible experience, providing access to world-renowned business titans. It's access, relationships, business, worship, and breakthroughs in your swimsuit. Reserve your cabin now at www.ceocruise.com. Some attribute the saying to the Greek philosopher,
dogs barking in Cardiff, same stuff.
Avoid criticism. All you have to do is say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. On the other hand, if you decide your life is purposed for something worthy and being on the playing field is preferred to sitting in the stands, there is something you are sure to encounter. Barking Dogs. The dynamic new book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, available now at Amazon.com, illustrates this encounter with the voices that find fault, who don't think it is possible, and who are unable to see a future alive with opportunities waiting to be seized. Unfortunately, these barking dogs are often right in our own heads. Simply put, go to Amazon.com and type in Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars and receive the wisdom gleaned from the author's own experience and hundreds of successful CEOs they interviewed over a decade, enabling you to bridge the chasm that is normally crossed only through trial and error. Get unstuck. Eliminate the frustration in building your business. The authors inspire and instruct those pursuing this journey with a central purpose: to exalt freedom through ethical capitalism. Kingdompreneur Radio is brought to you by Cardiff Lexington Corporation, a publicly traded company under symbol CDIX. If you're a business owner interested in selling to pull equity out of your business and would like to stay on board or looking for growth capital, visit www.cardifflexington.com.
Welcome back to Kingdompreneur Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Roland Roberts, and we are talking about how to break the soul ties in business. Look, where we left off was with Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, and Sarah comes to Abraham and says she's got to go. Her and the boy have to go. They're done here. And I'm your wife. She's not. She's out. And Abraham is torn, and he's at a crossroads, and he's got to make a decision to make. And, it's interesting because I don't know about you, but, in my life, I wish God would cast the Hagars out. I wish he would take care of the Hagars and Ishmaels. But the soul ties that I make, the soul ties that I willingly go along with the plan like that, he makes me do it. Mm-hmm. I'm the one that has to go in. Just like Sarah said, you go in and tell her. Like, Sarah's not going to go in and kick her. Abraham, you're the one with the soul tie. You go fix it. You go cut it off. And when you're at a crossroads, first of all, I can imagine Abraham going in and be like, Hagar, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? So I really like you, and we have something really special. You know that, right? And I mean, you can just start hearing the conversation, and he's trying to decide. Look, I don't know how much time it took for him to break that soul tie, but I do know this, that he's the one who had to go in and break the soul tie. And every soul tie you ever break, it's not between you. It's not just you and that person. You're looking at that person and you're looking at God and you're going, which one do I love more? Which one do I love more? Because if I'm either going to run to my miracle or I'm going to run to my mistake. That's the decision that you're making with soul ties. When it comes to cutting soul ties, know up front, I am saying, I'm going to say yes to the mistake, or I'm going to say yes to the miracle. But the decision is yours. If you keep living with the mistake and the soul tie, that's the decision that you're making. But when you're at that crossroads, nobody can do it for you. Your mama can't do it for you. Your preacher can't do it for you. The prayer line you call can't do it for you. You have to be the one to do it. And I'm telling you, it's never easy. It's never easy. I remember a soul tie, a wrong soul tie that I had. It wasn't, and I'm going to give you, there's 3 types of soul ties. There's sexual and physical soul ties. And then there are emotional soul ties, and there's spiritual soul ties, and specifically like David and Jonathan, very close. They had a soul tie as men and just as brothers. And you have a soul tie with God, and obviously as a Christian, as a believer, with your spouse, and then with friends. But the problem is, like I remember one, she was my best friend. There wasn't any physical relations ever or anything even remotely close to it. But emotionally, we had both been through hard times together. And it's almost like at work where, they celebrate your work wife or your work husband, you know, and it's so commonplace that we give them names that are okay. And that's not okay.
Agreed.
But here's the thing. She was my best friend. I wasn't married, but we were best friends. And then I went into a serious relationship. And then all of a sudden, a couple months into it, we realize, whoa, there's an unhealthy soul tie based on this new relationship. And I didn't even recognize it. I didn't recognize the soul tie at all, until it was pointed out that, 10, 20 texts a day is not normal, in terms of, and it's inappropriate, when you're in a serious relationship. And so I never recognized how emotional or deep that emotional soul tie ran.
Roland, how long did it take you to really come to grips with the reality that, hey, this is wrong?
Well, at first I was like, I did not think there was anything wrong but I wanted my relationship more than I wanted the soul tie. So I was like, well, I'll cut it off, but I don't understand why it's necessary, because there's nothing there. So I don't understand.
Sure.
And I would say that it still probably took me, I did cut things off immediately, but it took emotionally probably another 2 to 3 months for that to completely dissipate.
I think about it, even in your illustration, where God had to come down and say, hey, by the way, Abraham, Sarah's right. Get out of this relationship.
Yeah, it did. It took someone else. It took something else. So the soul ties, there's 2 killer things here. The soul ties that you don't know you have, and then the soul ties you refuse to break. The soul ties you don't know you have, or that you are past relationships. Even in work. I mean, I remember the worst technology salesperson I ever had was had been a male cheerleader. The second worst played college baseball. Do you want to know the opinions that I had about salespeople from that point on? I literally would look at a resume, and if it said male cheerleader on there anywhere and it was a male, I was like, no, we're not hiring them because they can't sell. I know what male cheerleaders are, and they're just going to come in here. They're going to high five everybody, and they're going to stand around at the water cooler and then come into my office at the end of the month wondering why they haven't hit their numbers. And and then the baseball, they just kind of tended to be a little bit lazy, and so I was like, I don't want that. And so anyway, it took me probably at least 7 or 8 years before I recognized, whoa, there was something that I formed an opinion on way back when over something, and that was inaccurate. But and then there's past employees and bosses. People said things to you, or they either let you get away with murder, or you never could do anything right. Obviously, cultural icons and celebrities. I think people have some soul ties to cultural icons and celebrities. The people who are obsessed, absolutely obsessed, with a musician, an artist, a country music singer. It's absolutely asinine to think that you even remotely know this person and you're going to follow them like more than you follow Jesus Christ. I promise you listen to more of their stuff. You follow their Instagram. You follow them more closely than you do the person that redeemed your life. And that's a problem. That's a soul tie.
Idolatry.
It is. And then the second aspect are the soul ties that you refuse to break. Every single sexual partner you've had outside of marriage, you just know you've got a soul tie with, and you don't even know. You don't know who they were with. You don't know the demons that they had that you opened yourself up to. You may not have started drinking until years after you were with that person. You may not have had an attitude problem. You may not have struggled with pride. You may not have struggled with anger or resentment or bitterness, but all of a sudden these things manifest themselves when the pressure's on at work and you don't understand why, and you think it's the stress in your life. And I'm telling you, friend, it is a soul tie in your past. And we want to help you break the soul ties. I want to help you break the soul ties today. And I've got a few steps for you here in just a minute. But the bottom line is you have to be the one that deals with it. Everyone, the drugs that they've done, the people that they've been with. So regardless of the problem that you're facing in life right now, I want you to stop and I want you to go back and think, where's the soul tie? Like, I'm struggling with my revenue right now. I'm struggling with my sales. I'm struggling in a relationship, and I don't understand why we're not on the same page. Where's the soul tie? Where's the soul tie? The biggest problem you and I face as entrepreneurs and as human beings is we don't identify the right enemy. We don't identify the right enemy. The enemy is not a person. Now, in this case, we break the soul tie, but they're still not the enemy. The enemy is the enmity between God and man, and that's what's happening with us. So we don't fight in the flesh, we fight in the spirit. And so if you live in the flesh, then you're fighting in the flesh, but the real problem is over here in the spirit world, and you've opened yourself up to so much destruction that the soul ties become harder and harder and harder for you to cut off. The longer they go, the harder they are. You know, it's easy for me to go throw a pack of cigarettes away. It's easy for me to take a 6-pack of beer and go dump it down the drain because I don't eat and I don't smoke and I don't drink. And I do barely eat. But I don't smoke and I don't drink. So it's easy for me to go pour this stuff down the drain and throw it away. But there are soul ties that are hard for me to cut. But in their soul ties, my soul tie isn't your soul tie. I'm the only one who can cut mine. You're the only one who can cut yours. And you're at a crossroads. Whatever the problem is, whatever's keeping you up at night, whatever is causing you to lose sleep and wake up early and wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, that's what you have to address in your life. When you have the boyfriend, the girlfriend, you know it's not God's will. You know it's not his plan. And the longer that relationship goes, the deeper the soul ties. I want you to have freedom. God came that you might have life and have it more abundantly and be free in Christ, not be a servant, not be a slave. But we willingly, everyone hates and is against slavery, and rightfully so, but most of us enslave ourselves willingly. And that's a problem. And I want you to be able to be free. I want you to be free so that you can fulfill your passion and your calling and your work and your career, your vocation, have an amazing family, have amazing children. That's what I want for you and for your life. So there's positive soul ties, obviously with God and your spouse, accountability partners of the same sex like David and Jonathan had. But then there's the negative soul ties. And of course, I shared the ones on what needed to be break. I want to give you 4 things though on how to break a soul tie. Are you ready? 4 things to break a soul tie. Number 1, acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it. You know, you can't heal someone that's not sick. You have to recognize that there is a soul tie. The second thing you have to do is confess and repent of that soul tie. You have to confess the soul tie. Then the third thing is to forgive them and yourself. You're going to have to forgive both of them because, Abraham had to be like, what was I thinking? Like, I could really beat myself up over my past or my sin or my past problems. And I've had my fair share of mistakes, like Abraham had his mistakes and he had his miracles. I've had my mistakes and I've had my miracles. But if you want God's blessing on your life, you have got to forgive yourself and you've got to forgive them. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to get forgiveness from them. You got to pre-forgive them. They could have done you really, really wrong. And they're never going to come back to you and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? Probably not going to happen. But you still can forgive them and in pre-forgiveness. And then number 4, breaking things off and removing them completely out of your life. Gifts, pictures, memories. I mean, you have to cut them off. I don't want to see the plate that was given and the sport coat that was given, and I don't want to see, this ring and that jewelry and,
Objects are designed to trigger memories. That's the whole significance of the object.
Where you were when you got them and all those kind of things. Let me tell you, I was asked to serve as a personal and spiritual advisor for someone this week of an organization, of a company. They're the head of it. And I'm literally going to be by their side for a solid week for one reason, because they have faced, I got the email at 1:43 a.m. 2 days ago, and they're facing so much spiritual warfare in business. And they said, I need you there. I need you with me. And so I'm spending the next week literally by that one person's side because of how great the spiritual warfare is. And I got to thinking, who do I want in my foxhole? Because when your life is on the line, when your entire career, your entire finances, your future is on the line, who do you want in the foxhole with you? I mean, there's probably only 2 or 3 people I know that I would want praying next to me, and in that situation, that can pray the devil out of that place and pray fire down from heaven. That's the kind of power that I want to be around. That's the kind of power I want to be with. And so I'm honored to be able to do that for her. But I'm telling you, it's very real. The soul ties are real. And so I go back to 2 Timothy 2:4. For Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world. Who in your life do you need to say no to? And that you need to kind of just acknowledge, like Paul did, look, he used to be one of us, but he loved the world. He loved his mistake more than he loved his miracle. You need to cut that soul tie. You got to cut the soul tie. And then the other thing I wanted to mention to you is that as people come and go throughout your life, you're going to have to remember Galatians 3:1. O foolish Galatians, who hath deceived you that you should not obey the truth? Be careful who you trust. Be careful who you choose to believe. Whoever you believe is the future that you're going to have. So I want to encourage you to I'll be at the Miss United States pageant this week. It's being held in Orlando, Florida at the Omni Resort. You can go to MissUnitedStatesPageant.com. I've got some people there that I'll be rooting for, and it's going to be a great time. I also want to tell you about Tomco's Taverns on Turkey Lake Road. It used to be Dewey's Indoor Golf. Love that place. Dewey just made me eat way too much food, and it's just amazing. But I want you to get over there. He also owns Vines. But that's my new favorite hangout spot, no doubt about it. Also, I'm on the board of directors for Guys with Ties Philanthropy. We're hosting our annual legendary white party and fashion show on July 28th. You can get tickets, I think, shortly, for $25, as the early bird price. You can get those at guyswithties.org. And then also, for all the ladies out there, mark your calendars for Saturday, August 11th. I'll be keynoting the Women's Empowerment Conference in Orlando, Florida, and I want you to be there. You'll see some marketing information on it this coming week. But mark your calendars for that day, Saturday, August 11th. And I do hope you'll join me on my next all-inclusive 3-day, 2-night faith-based CEO cruise. It's October 7th through the 9th. It's just $49 right now using the discount code Kingdompreneur. You can reserve that cabin at ceocruise.com. There's only a handful of cabins left at the $49 price. And then, of course, after that, it goes up. You can also upgrade to Ocean View and other things, but we've got some amazing people on it. I mean, it's really special. You can follow us, too. There's a CEO Entrepreneur Cruise Facebook group, and we keep that up to date, and you'll get to see some of the people who will be on there. Obviously, the Tom Feltonstein, who invented the McDonald's Happy Meal, and others. Ford Taylor of Transformational Leadership. Of course, Peter Lowe, who's my partner there, founded the Get Motivated Success Seminars. So we'd certainly love to have you. Stay tuned for Authentic Living with the dynamic powerhouse Courtney Shaw. I'll be taking your business calls and addressing your struggles on Kingdompreneur Radio again next Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Dr. Roland Roberts, encouraging you to live your faith in business. Have a great week.
You've been listening to Kingdompreneur Radio with Dr. Roland Roberts. Business principles into hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs every week.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that edition. It was good. I enjoyed it. This is one of those topics where I'd much rather us sit around the fire pit. Let me turn this down. I would love to just sit around the fire pit. And this is our outro, by the way, so you're missing it. But I'd much rather just sit around a fire pit or pool and visit about these things, because there's so much to these things. And If you're like me, you just don't see them. They're called blind spots for a reason because you don't see them. And everyone else can be like, well, you should. It's so obvious. How can you not? Well, you're just rude. You're just being rude because I don't, The difference, what I find though, here's one of the ways you can know who someone is when they're confronted or when it's brought to their attention, how do they respond? How do they react? Is the initial reaction to defend? Or is it like, I never thought about that. I'm not sure. I need a process to see if I agree with you, but you obviously observed something in me. And so when it comes to breaking the soul ties and acknowledging them, I did a lot of soul searching over the past week in preparation for this show. What soul ties that I have that I have never recognized before in light of just studying for this. And I've got to tell you, I think one of the major areas that I noticed was like, that's where I thought of the idea with how I had held on to the male cheerleader, like make bad salespeople. I held on to some of those things, but it was from experience, and it was from the connection that I had with the guy for months trying to bring him along. And that's that. I started seeing other places where that philosophy stuck with me. And, but really it's bigger than this. I really wanted to get to the heart of what the biggest thing you're struggling with right now in your business. You probably are equating to a business problem, to something in your business. And I'm telling you, what I see, there's always things that, you can do to improve the business. You may be improving the culture, the product positioning, the packaging, the performance. And I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do and you continue to do to grow a business. Marketing, branding, positioning. But one of the biggest problems you probably have are the soul ties that you, as a leader and as a CEO and as the entrepreneur, that you have. Because if everything else is not in synergy, the marketing aligned with the product names, aligned with the methods of distribution, aligned with how they're sold, if there's not alignment there probably isn't alignment with you, because it would be so obvious. It's very disjointed. And this is coming down to soul ties. It's coming down to soul ties. And the problem is you can't fight a soul tie or spiritual warfare with tools of the flesh. They don't work. The pain will stay there. The bitterness will stay there. The resentment will stay there. The hatred will stay there. Your problems will stay there. And all you do is kind of agitate them because you kind of kick them a little bit. You nudge them a little bit. You mess with it a little bit. You poke the bear, but you can't finish the job because you're not fighting with the right weapons. So my prayer, I go back to, I look at business people that have big deals on the line, and one time I got on a plane to go with one of them because he wanted same thing. He wanted somebody praying, in his corner the whole time. And then, of course, over the next week, being with the head person there because of some significant spiritual warfare they're facing. Look, you can have assistance all day long, but you may not be fighting with the right weapons. And so I highly encourage you to if you need me or someone, reach out and make sure you have the absolute best in your corner, the right people in your corner that can get a hold of heaven. You only value that whenever you're really in a spiritual battle. And in this case, it's in business. The one thing I did not get to share today that I'll share with you is that the last 2 months, there was a company that was really struggling, and it looked like they were going to go out of business. And this would have affected a lot of shareholders. It would have affected a lot of people. It was bad. The last 3 weeks, the amount of income that they paid for me to do nothing but pray. It didn't matter if I had to be on my hands and knees in my face before God for 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 7 hours a day. It did not matter. We want to pray our way out of this because it's not in any of our hands anymore. but it can shut the doors. And yesterday was the deadline at 5 p.m. And I got emails and texts at 4:46 saying with 14 minutes to spare, the company is saved. Everything got approved that needed to be approved to keep the company alive. I promise you, earlier this week, knowing the spiritual warfare, especially last weekend, I really was it was a tough weekend. Just because I was praying through, and I thought I was praying about one thing, and I didn't realize all the other spiritual warfare that was taking place. But I was burdened. I didn't know what about. And I recognized that 14 minutes before a deadline, God broke through. He really came through. You can go it alone. You can try and build your business on your own. You can try and run companies on your own. You can try and fix your life on your own. You'll never experience the amazing miracles of God like you could without fully trusting Him, fully surrendering Him, fully giving your heart and life to Him in every aspect. Business, of course. But most people just fail to equate what's happening in their personal life to their business and their business life. And I'm telling you, they are not separable. They're not separable. They're one and the same. And that's the disconnect. So I pray that you have a great week. Eric, would you like to close and say anything, just the audience here? It's been a great day.
This has been fantastic. I tell you, I'm probably like you. I'm quickly doing inventory, not only for myself, but for my business partners, so that we're on the same page and that we're free to do what God's called us to be. You know, and the only thing, Roland, that was coming to me as you were talking is the best way to break a soul tie is to not get in one.
That's it.
To be wise. Over and over again, the Bible admonishes us to be wise. And one of the areas that wisdom is emphasized so much in Scripture is about avoiding the pitfalls, avoiding these things that can entertain you up, because once you're in them, it's so hard to extricate yourself.
Yes,
and so the best strategy is don't get in them. Set the proper boundaries in your life. Have the kind of accountability in your life where people have the freedom to ask and to inquire so that those ties don't get broken. Yes. Is Jesus our deliverer? Absolutely. Will He rescue us every time? It doesn't matter how many times He is there. But the thing that will give you real victory is to avoid it in the first place. And so I just encourage you to do that.
Amen. Wow, what a word. And you know what I would say? I always want to be the fence at the top of the hill, not the ambulance at the bottom.
Right.
But when you do what we do, you're both.
Mm-hmm. That's
as loud as possible. I want to say, caution, red flag, don't do it, don't do it. You did it.
Yeah.
You did it. I was really hoping this time you wouldn't. But you did. And just like the grace of God, we're here to say, I love you, I forgive you. He's a God of restoration. He's a God that restores. But I'm telling you, you're at a crossroads. You're going to have to choose, do I love this person and what we had or what we have more than I love my Redeemer? And if whatever soul ties you're not willing to break shows you where your heart is, that shows you that's your spiritual temperature. And, Les Brown always said, you can do what's easy and have a hard life, or you can do what's hard and have an easy life. And in this case, it's hard to break a soul tie. You don't naturally go looking for them to, hey, how can I experience some pain? Because you know what? Some of the soul ties that I've walked away, that I've broken, man, they hurt bad. In fact, let me tell you this: I've never broken a soul tie that I didn't cry about. You're going to walk away with a limp when you break a soul tie. You're going to be limping like Jacob was, after wrestling with God. But I'm telling you, friends, I'd rather limp. I'd rather be lonely. I'd rather whatever comes than to not break a soul tie.
Roland, one of the things you said that was really kind of revelatory to me is that you mentioned, there's the seemingly positive soul tie where you get seduced into an illicit kind of relationship. But then there's the negative ones where someone hurts you, someone offends you, and your mind is tied to them. You're thinking about them and they're not thinking about you. You're carrying them around with you. And that's a part of this equation that Roland's talking about, where you got to let it go. It's the love of the Father calling out to you to let that go, because you're now the prisoner of that resentment.
Amen. Wow. What a day. What a day. Well, thank you for joining us on Kingdompreneur Radio. Every week is something special. And of course, this topic, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for all of the comments and the feedback that you've given and the participation. Thank you to Blair and Darla, who contributed to the conversation today and asked their questions. I love entrepreneurs. I love helping business people in their life and their business. And we cover it all. So we're really glad that you were able to join us today, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week.